Marcus Thompson stood at the kitchen sink, his hands submerged in soapy water as he scrubbed the breakfast dishes. The morning sunlight streamed through the window, but it brought him no warmth. 3 years ago, his life had been completely different. Back then, Marcus worked as a senior analyst at a prestigious tech company in Seattle. His salary was comfortable, his future bright. His wife, Jennifer, didn't need to work, though she chose to pursue her passion for interior design. They lived in a beautiful apartment overlooking Lake Washington, and their 11-year-old son Tyler attended one of the best private schools in the city. Marcus remembered those days with a bitter ache. The family vacations to Hawaii, the weekend brunches at expensive restaurants, the way Jennifer used to look at him with pride when he talked about his projects. Life had been good, almost perfect. Then the tech bubble burst. His company, like many others, couldn't weather the economic storm. One Friday afternoon, Marcus and 200 other employees were called into a conference room and told their positions were being eliminated. Just like that, everything changed. At first, Marcus remained optimistic. He had a strong resume, excellent references, and years of experience. He spent his days updating his LinkedIn profile, attending networking events, and sending out applications. Surely, something would come through. But weeks turned into months. His savings dwindled. The callbacks he expected never came. The tech industry was oversaturated with talented people, all competing for the same few positions. Marcus found himself facing a reality he'd never imagined. He was unemployed, and prospects were grim. They had to leave their beautiful apartment. The downgrade was painful but necessary. They moved to a modest 2-bedroom house in a working-class neighborhood. Jennifer had found work as an office manager at a manufacturing company, and her income now kept them afloat. Marcus watched as the power dynamic in their marriage shifted completely. He expected support, understanding, partnership. Instead, Jennifer's attitude toward him changed. The loving looks disappeared, replaced by cold glances and heavy sighs. She stopped asking about his job search. She stopped asking about anything. Unable to sit idle, Marcus took whatever work he could find. He delivered groceries, did yard work for neighbors, and eventually found himself doing manual labor at construction sites. The pay was minimal, barely enough to contribute to household expenses, but it was something. One morning, as he prepared to leave for a demolition job, Jennifer walked past him without a word. She grabbed her coffee, her designer handbag, a recent gift from her boss, and headed for the door. Marcus watched her go, feeling invisible in his own home. His phone buzzed. It was a text from a fellow laborer named Ray. Big job today. Old warehouse demolition downtown. They need extra hands. $100 for the day. You in? Marcus typed back immediately. I'll be there. He looked around the kitchen one last time. The breakfast dishes were clean, the counters wiped down. Everything was in order, just as Jennifer demanded. But order in the house couldn't fix the chaos in his marriage. As Marcus grabbed his worn work boots and headed out the door, he had no idea that this particular demolition job would change everything. He didn't know that behind one of those old warehouse walls lay something extraordinary. Something that would transform him from a struggling laborer into one of the wealthiest men in the Pacific Northwest. Sometimes, destiny hides in the most unexpected places. Sometimes, it takes losing everything to find what you were truly meant to discover. If you're enjoying Marcus's incredible journey from rock bottom to the top, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next chapter. Comment below. Have you ever experienced a dramatic life change? Share your story with us. Jennifer Thompson walked into the office like she owned the place. Her heels clicked rhythmically across the polished floor, her tailored suit hugging her frame perfectly. She carried herself with an air of confidence that made junior employees step aside as she passed. "Morning, Mrs. Thompson," the receptionist called out cheerfully. Jennifer gave a slight nod without breaking stride. She had earned the nickname Ice Queen among the staff, though no one dared say it to her face. She was efficient, demanding, and had become indispensable to the company's CEO, Richard Morrison. Richard Morrison was everything Marcus wasn't. At 52, he was distinguished, powerful, and wealthy beyond measure. His manufacturing company supplied parts to major aerospace and automotive corporations across the country. He drove a Mercedes, lived in a waterfront estate, and moved through the world with the ease of someone who had never known struggle. Their relationship had started professionally enough. Richard would stop by Jennifer's office to discuss logistics, inventory reports, scheduling conflicts. But gradually, those brief check-ins became longer conversations. Coffee breaks turned into lunch meetings. Business discussions evolved into personal exchanges. One Thursday afternoon, Richard appeared at Jennifer's office door. "I'm heading to that new French restaurant on Fifth Avenue. Join me. We can discuss the quarterly reports somewhere more pleasant than this sterile office." Jennifer didn't hesitate. She grabbed her purse and followed him out. The restaurant was elegant, expensive, the kind of place Marcus could never have afforded even during his best-earning years. They sat by the window, overlooking the city. Richard ordered wine without looking at the price. "You're incredibly capable, Jennifer," Richard said, swirling his glass. "I don't know what this company would do without you." "I just do my job," she replied, though she couldn't hide her pleasure at the compliment. "It's more than that. You have a presence, a strength. Tell me, how are things at home?" Jennifer's smile faded slightly. "Marcus still hasn't found steady work. He's doing demolition jobs now. Can you believe it? A man who used to give presentations to executives is now tearing down buildings for pocket change." Richard leaned back thoughtfully. "That must be difficult for you." "It's humiliating," Jennifer said, her voice harder than she intended. "I'm carrying the entire household. Rent, utilities, our son's school expenses, everything falls on me. And Marcus just exists." "You deserve better," Richard said softly. "A woman like you shouldn't have to bear that burden." Something shifted in that moment. Jennifer felt seen, appreciated in a way she hadn't felt in years. Richard wasn't just her boss anymore. He was someone who understood her frustration, who recognized her worth. Over the following weeks, their relationship deepened. Richard began picking her up for work, his luxury car a stark contrast to the modest sedan she and Marcus shared. He gave her an expensive smartphone, supposedly for work purposes. He made sure she received the best assignments, the biggest bonuses, the most visible projects. The office gossip started, but Jennifer didn't care. For the first time in 3 years, she felt powerful again, desired, important. One evening, Richard suggested they celebrate closing a major contract. "There's a hotel downtown with an excellent restaurant. Let's have dinner, then you can rest before heading home. You've been working so hard." Jennifer knew what the invitation meant. She accepted anyway. That night, while she lay in Richard's arms in a luxury hotel suite, Marcus sat alone in their small house, heating up leftover soup for dinner. He looked at his son's empty bedroom. Tyler was at a friend's house, and felt the weight of his failures crushing down on him. He remembered when Jennifer used to wait up for him after late work meetings, when she'd massage his shoulders and tell him how proud she was of his accomplishments. He remembered when they were partners, allies, friends. Now, they were strangers living under the same roof. And Marcus suspected the truth, even if he didn't want to face it. The expensive gifts Jennifer suddenly had, the late nights, the way she looked at him with barely concealed contempt, it all pointed to one painful conclusion. His marriage was ending, whether he was ready to accept it or not. Marcus heard the front door open around 11 o'clock. He'd been sitting in the dark living room, unable to sleep, his mind racing with thoughts he didn't want to entertain. When Jennifer walked in, her makeup was still perfect, her clothes unwrinkled, but something about the scene felt wrong. She jumped slightly when she saw him. "You scared me. Why are you sitting in the dark? Where were you?" Marcus asked quietly. "Working late. Richard and I had to finalize the Parker contract." She moved toward the bedroom, but Marcus stood up. "Jennifer, we need to talk." She sighed dramatically. I'm tired, Marcus. Can this wait? No. His voice was firmer than usual. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Jennifer crossed her arms defensively. What? Are you having an affair with your boss? The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer's face remained neutral, but her eyes flashed with something, anger or perhaps relief that the secret was finally out. What if I am? She said coldly. What are you going to do about it? Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Even though he'd suspected it, hearing her confirm it was devastating. How could you? We're married. We have a son. We also have bills, Jennifer shot back. We have responsibilities. And I'm the only one meeting them. You think I wanted this life, Marcus? Living in this cramped house, worrying about money, watching you shuffle off to manual labor jobs like some uneducated worker. I lost my job, Jennifer. That doesn't mean I lost my worth as a person. She laughed bitterly. Doesn't it? Because from where I'm standing, you lost everything. Your career, your ambition, your ability to provide for your family. Richard is a real man. He's successful, powerful, secure. He makes me feel valued. I valued you, Marcus said, his voice breaking. I loved you. I still do. Love doesn't pay the mortgage, Marcus. He stared at her, this woman he'd married 12 years ago, the mother of his child, and barely recognized her. So what now? What do you want? I want a divorce, Jennifer said flatly. I've already spoken to a lawyer. The papers will be ready next week. Marcus nodded slowly, something inside him breaking completely. Fine. If that's what you want. It is. And I want you out of this house. I pay for it, so it's mine. What about Tyler? He'll stay with me. You can have visitation rights, but I'm not having him live in whatever cheap apartment you end up in. Marcus felt tears threatening but refused to let them fall. You've thought this all through, haven't you? I've had plenty of time to think, Jennifer said. You've given me nothing but time to sit and watch my life waste away. The next morning, Marcus woke early. Jennifer had already left for work. He made breakfast for Tyler, who was confused about the tension in the house but too young to fully understand what was happening. Dad, are you okay? Tyler asked, looking up from his cereal. Marcus forced a smile. I'm fine, buddy. Just tired. Mom seems angry all the time now. She's just stressed with work, Marcus lied. Hey, how about we throw the football around this weekend? Tyler's face brightened. Really? You promise? I promise. After dropping Tyler at school, Marcus headed to the demolition site. Ray was already there, along with a crew of about 8 other workers. The job was a massive old warehouse that once belonged to a shipping company executive who died years ago. The city was reclaiming the land for a new development project. Morning, Marcus, Ray called out. You ready for some hard work? More than ready, Marcus replied, grabbing a sledgehammer. The warehouse was 3 stories tall, filled with old equipment, dusty offices, and forgotten storage rooms. The crew was tasked with demolishing the interior walls before the heavy machinery came in to tear down the structure itself. Marcus was assigned to the 2nd floor, an old office wing with wood-paneled walls and rotting carpet. He swung the sledgehammer methodically, each impact helping him release some of the anger and pain he'd been carrying. By midday, most of the crew had broken for lunch. Marcus, desperate to keep busy and avoid thinking about his crumbling marriage, kept working. He was demolishing what appeared to be an executive office when his sledgehammer hit something unusual. The wall sounded hollow. Marcus frowned, hitting it again. Definitely hollow. He cleared away more of the drywall and discovered a hidden compartment, a false wall carefully constructed to look like a support beam. His heart racing, Marcus pulled away the remaining pieces. Behind the false wall was a space about 3 feet wide, and stacked inside were several large duffel bags. With trembling hands, Marcus pulled out one of the bags. It was heavy, surprisingly so. He unzipped it carefully, and his breath caught in his throat. Money. Stacks and stacks of cash, bundled and wrapped in plastic. Not just American dollars, but also euros, British pounds, and other foreign currencies. Marcus opened another bag, then another. Each one was filled with money. His mind raced. This had to be millions. Maybe tens of millions. The warehouse had belonged to a shipping executive who died suddenly. According to Ray, the man had been under investigation for smuggling and fraud but died before charges were filed. This must have been his hidden fortune. Marcus looked around. The rest of the crew was downstairs, eating lunch and joking around. No one had seen what he'd found. He had a choice to make, and he had to make it quickly. Marcus stood frozen, staring at the open duffel bags filled with more money than he'd ever seen in his life. His hands were shaking, his mind racing through 1,000 thoughts at once. This money could solve every problem. He could pay off debts, get a decent apartment, maybe even start over somewhere new. But it wasn't his money. It belonged to... who exactly? A dead criminal? The government? The city? He thought about Jennifer's cold words from the night before. Love doesn't pay the mortgage, Marcus. He thought about Tyler, about being able to provide for his son properly. He thought about the years of struggle, the humiliation, the constant feeling of worthlessness. Then he thought about who he wanted to be. Not who circumstances had forced him to become, but who he truly was at his core. Marcus heard footsteps on the stairs. Ray was coming back up. Without thinking, Marcus quickly pushed the bags back into the wall cavity and leaned the sledgehammer against it, hiding the opening with his body. "Hey man, you didn't break for lunch?" Ray asked, appearing in the doorway. "Just wanted to get this section done," Marcus replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Ray studied him for a moment. "You all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine. Just tired." "Well, don't kill yourself. Take a break, man. There's sandwiches downstairs." After Ray left, Marcus stood there for another long moment. Then, moving quickly before he could change his mind, he began pulling the bags out of the wall. There were 6 in total, each one stuffed full. He couldn't leave them here. Whether he turned them in or kept them, he couldn't risk someone else finding them first. Working quickly, Marcus carried the bags one by one to his beat-up pickup truck parked behind the building. He covered them with a tarp he kept in the truck bed. His heart pounded the entire time, certain that someone would see him, but luck was on his side. The crew was all gathered at the front of the building, and no one noticed him loading the mysterious cargo. By the time he returned to the second floor, he was sweating profusely. He quickly demolished the rest of the false wall, making it look like he'd simply completed his assigned section. When the foreman came to inspect the work later that afternoon, he just nodded approvingly and marked Marcus's area as complete. Marcus collected his $100 for the day's work, the money feeling insignificant and almost laughable given what was sitting in his truck. He drove home carefully, obeying every traffic law, checking his mirrors constantly. When he arrived at the house, Jennifer's car wasn't in the driveway. She was still at work, or wherever she went these days. Marcus parked in the garage and quickly transferred the bags to his bedroom closet, hiding them under old clothes and boxes. That night, after Jennifer came home and retreated to her own room, they'd been sleeping separately for weeks. Marcus lay awake staring at the ceiling. In the morning, the divorce papers would be delivered. He'd sign them. He'd move out. And then what? He got up quietly and opened one of the bags, actually counting the money for the first time. Each bundle contained $50,000. There were approximately 20 bundles per bag. 6 bags total. Marcus did the math in his head and nearly gasped. $6 million. He sat on the floor of his bedroom, surrounded by more money than he'd earn in 10 lifetimes, and started to laugh. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the sound of a man whose entire world had just shifted on its axis. The next morning, Jennifer served him the divorce papers over breakfast. Tyler was at school, so it was just the two of them. Marcus read through the documents carefully, then signed where indicated. "I'll be out by the weekend," he said quietly. Jennifer looked almost surprised. "That's it. No fight. What would be the point?" Marcus replied. "You've made up your mind." "I have. I'm seeing Richard now, officially. I thought you should know." Marcus nodded. "I hope he makes you happy." She seemed thrown off by his calm demeanor. "What are you going to do? Where will you go?" "I'll figure it out," Marcus said, standing up from the table. "I always do." As he walked away, Jennifer called after him. "Marcus, I'm not trying to be cruel. I can't do this anymore. I can't be poor." He turned back to look at her. "You were never poor, Jennifer. You just thought you were." That afternoon, Marcus rented a storage unit across town and transferred 5 of the 6 bags there. He kept one bag with him, $1 million in cash. Then he checked into a modest extended stay hotel and began making plans. He spent the next 3 days thinking, researching, and remembering everything he'd learned during his years in the tech industry. He thought about opportunities, about markets, about the skills he still possessed. The money was a tool, nothing more. It could either destroy him or transform him, depending on how he used it. By the 4th day, Marcus had a plan. He wasn't going to just live off this money until it ran out. He was going to use it to build something real, something lasting. He was going to create the life he'd always been capable of having, the life that circumstances had temporarily denied him. But first, he needed to be smart. He needed to be careful. And most importantly, he needed to become someone completely different from the broken man his wife had divorced. Marcus sat in his hotel room with his laptop open, notebooks spread across the bed, and a single bundle of cash beside him. He'd been researching for 2 weeks straight, barely sleeping, consuming every piece of information he could find about business formation, investment strategies, and his old industry. The tech sector was evolving rapidly. During his unemployment, while he'd been focused on survival, new opportunities had emerged. Cloud computing, data security, AI integration. Companies were desperate for solutions to problems Marcus actually understood. But he couldn't just appear out of nowhere with millions of dollars. That would raise questions he couldn't answer. He needed a story, a legitimate origin for his wealth. He needed to be smart. Marcus started small. He used $50,000 to invest in cryptocurrency, which was just beginning its explosive growth. Another $100,000 went into carefully selected tech stocks. These investments were legal, documented, and within a few months, showed modest returns. That gave him a paper trail, a source of funds he could point to if anyone asked. Next, he established a corporation. Not under his own name, not yet. He created a holding company called Pacific Northwest Ventures LLC, with himself listed as managing director. The paperwork was meticulous, legal, properly filed. He hired a respected accountant and a business attorney, both of whom believed he'd come into money through a combination of investments and a small inheritance from a distant relative. His target was an old software company called DataStream Solutions. They developed excellent security software in the early 2000s, but had fallen behind during the market crash. The company was struggling, barely surviving, desperate for capital. The owner, an aging programmer named Walter Chen, was ready to sell for a fraction of what the company was actually worth. Marcus approached Walter carefully, through his newly formed LLC. He offered $2 million for complete ownership, plus a consulting position for Walter at a generous salary. Walter, tired and ready to retire, accepted immediately. Now came the real work. Marcus brought in his old college roommate, Terrence, a brilliant programmer who'd been freelancing from his basement. Then Sarah Kim, a marketing genius he'd worked with at his previous company. Then David Rodriguez, a sales expert who understood enterprise clients better than anyone Marcus knew. "I know this seems sudden," Marcus told them during their first meeting at a rented conference room. "But I believe in this company. I believe in what we can build. And I'm willing to put everything I have into making it succeed." They believed him. More importantly, they joined him. Within 6 months, DataStream Solutions, now rebranded as SecureNet Technologies, had updated its entire software suite. They focused on one thing: protecting businesses from cyber threats. The timing was perfect. Major corporations were getting hacked regularly, losing millions in ransomware attacks. SecureNet offered solutions that actually worked. Marcus was careful with the money. He didn't drive expensive cars or wear designer suits. He lived modestly, reinvesting every dollar back into the company. He worked 18-hour days, leveraging every skill he'd learned during his corporate career, and plenty he'd learned during his time in the trenches. The breakthrough came when they secured a contract with a regional healthcare system. SecureNet software prevented a major ransomware attack, saving the hospital network millions of dollars and protecting patient data. Word spread quickly. Within weeks, Marcus was fielding calls from companies across the Pacific Northwest. By the end of the first year, SecureNet Technologies was generating $15 million in annual revenue. Marcus had legitimately turned his hidden fortune into a thriving business. The money from the warehouse was now clean, filtered through investments, business operations, and legal contracts. He'd transformed himself from a desperate laborer into a successful tech entrepreneur. But he didn't stop there. Marcus acquired 2 smaller companies, absorbed their technology and talent, and expanded into data analytics. He opened an office in San Francisco, then one in Austin. He hired over 100 employees. He was featured in regional business magazines as one of the rising stars of the tech industry. Through it all, Marcus remained focused and disciplined. He didn't date, didn't party, didn't indulge in the typical trappings of sudden wealth. He had a goal in mind, a specific vision of who he wanted to become. One afternoon, as he stood in his corner office overlooking Elliott Bay, Marcus received an unexpected call. It was Tyler. "Dad. It's me." Marcus's heart jumped. "Tyler. How are you, buddy? How's school?" "It's okay. Dad, I miss you. Why don't you visit anymore? Your mom said." "I thought she didn't want me around." "I don't care what she wants. You're my dad. Can I come see you this weekend?" Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. "Absolutely. I'll pick you up Saturday morning. We'll spend the whole day together." "Awesome. Dad. People at school say you started a company. Is that true?" "It is, son. I'll tell you all about it when I see you." After hanging up, Marcus looked at his reflection in the office window. He barely recognized the man staring back. Confident, successful, transformed. But underneath, he was still the same Marcus who'd loved his family, who'd worked hard, who'd never stopped believing he was worth something. Jennifer had told him love didn't pay the mortgage. She was wrong. Love had kept him going when he had nothing. Love had pushed him to become better, not for revenge, but because he wanted to be someone his son could be proud of. The hidden money had given him an opportunity, but it was his own determination, skills, and character that had turned that opportunity into success. Still, Marcus knew his transformation wasn't complete. There was one more step, one final piece of the puzzle, and it involved someone he hadn't forgotten, someone who'd shown him kindness when he desperately needed it. 2 years had passed since Marcus had signed the divorce papers. SecureNet Technologies was now worth over $50 million, with Marcus as the sole owner and CEO. He'd moved into a modern penthouse in downtown Seattle, driven a Tesla, and employed over 200 people across 3 offices. But despite his success, something felt incomplete. Marcus thought often about the people who'd been there during his darkest days. Tyler, who he now saw every other weekend and had slowly begun to understand what had really happened. Ray, the construction worker who'd offered him that fateful job. And then there was Maria. Maria Lopez had been the only person at the construction sites who'd treated him with kindness. She'd shared her lunch with him, offered words of encouragement, and never made him feel less than human. While everyone else saw a fallen man doing desperate work, Maria had seen a person worthy of compassion. Marcus had never forgotten her. For months, he'd wondered what happened to her, if she was still doing manual labor, if life had been kind to her or cruel. Finally, he'd asked his head of security to locate her discreetly. The report came back sobering. Maria was still working construction, still barely making ends meet, still living in the same rundown apartment complex she'd lived in 3 years ago. She had a degree in civil engineering but couldn't afford the certification exams needed to advance her career. She was stuck, just as Marcus had been stuck. On a bright Thursday morning, Marcus made a decision. He put on a sharp navy suit, straightened his tie, and told his driver to prepare the car. 2 black SUVs followed him, security protocol he'd established after some business rivals had made veiled threats. They drove to the construction site where Maria was currently working. When the convoy pulled up, work stopped. Hard-hatted men stared at the luxury vehicles, wondering what politician or celebrity had arrived. Marcus stepped out and scanned the site. Then he saw her. Maria was carrying lumber across the yard, her face sweaty from exertion, her work clothes dusty. She looked exactly the same, still strong, still determined, still kind. When their eyes met, Maria dropped the lumber. Her hand went to her mouth. She walked toward him slowly, as if approaching a ghost. "Marcus, is that really you?" He smiled. "Hello, Maria. What happened to you? I mean, look at you." She gestured at the suit, the cars, the obvious wealth. "I got lucky," Marcus said simply. "But I never forgot your kindness. You helped me when I had nothing, when everyone else looked through me like I was invisible." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "I just gave you a sandwich." "You gave me dignity," Marcus corrected. "You reminded me I was human when I was starting to forget. That's worth more than you know." He gestured toward the car. "Maria, I have a proposition for you. I know you have a civil engineering degree. I know you're brilliant. And I know you've been stuck doing work that doesn't match your potential." "I couldn't afford to finish my certifications," Maria said quietly. "Life got in the way. What if life got back out of the way?" Marcus asked. "I'm building a new division in my company focused on infrastructure projects. Smart city technology, sustainable building design, integration of tech and construction. I need someone who understands both worlds, someone with your education and your practical experience." Maria stared at him. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a career. Full salary, benefits, and the company will pay for any certifications or additional training you need. You'll head the new division once you're ready." "I don't know what to say." "Say yes. Unless you'd rather keep carrying lumber for minimum wage." Maria laughed through her tears. "Yes. Absolutely yes." Over the next 6 months, Maria transformed just as Marcus had. She passed her professional engineering exams with flying colors. She designed innovative projects that integrated secure net security technology with sustainable building practices. She became one of Marcus's most valuable executives. But more than that, they became close friends. Maria understood what Marcus had been through because she'd been there. She'd seen him at his lowest point and respected how far he'd climbed. There was no pretense between them, no games, just 2 people who'd both fought their way up from rock bottom. One evening, as they worked late reviewing plans for a major project, Maria asked the question she'd been holding back. "Marcus, what really happened? How did you go from demolition worker to tech CEO in 2 years? That kind of transformation doesn't just happen." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said simply, "I got an opportunity, and I didn't waste it. That's all anyone can do, right? Make the most of the opportunities we're given." Maria studied his face. "There's more to the story, isn't there?" "Maybe. But some stories are better left partially untold." She nodded, understanding that whatever had happened, Marcus had earned his success through hard work and intelligence, regardless of how it started. As Maria left that night, Marcus stood at his office window looking out at the Seattle skyline. He thought about Jennifer, about the woman who'd told him he was worthless. He wondered if she knew what he'd become, if she ever thought about him, if she ever regretted her choices. Then he shook his head. It didn't matter. He wasn't building this life for revenge or to prove something to his ex-wife. He was building it because he'd discovered who he truly was during those dark days, and he decided to become that person fully. Still, Marcus couldn't help but wonder when their paths would inevitably cross again. Seattle's business community was small at the highest levels. Eventually, they'd be at the same event, the same meeting, the same room. What would he say to her? More importantly, what would she say to him? The invitation arrived on heavy cardstock with gold embossing. Marcus read it twice, his expression unreadable. The Seattle Business Excellence Gala, honoring the city's most innovative companies and entrepreneurs. Black tie event, Saturday evening at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel. Maria walked into his office holding her own invitation. Are you going to this thing? Apparently SecureNet is being recognized for technology innovation. Marcus set the card down carefully. I suppose we should. It's good for the company. What he didn't say was that Jennifer's employer, Morrison Manufacturing, would certainly be there. Richard Morrison sat on the events board of directors. The chances of encountering his ex-wife were nearly 100%. Saturday arrived quickly. Marcus wore a custom-tailored tuxedo and arrived at the hotel with Maria, stunning in an elegant evening gown, as his guest. When they entered the grand ballroom, heads turned. Marcus had become recognizable in Seattle's business community, his company's rapid rise the subject of numerous articles and discussions. The room was filled with the city's elite. CEOs, investors, politicians, and society figures mingled beneath crystal chandeliers. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Marcus had barely taken a glass of champagne when he saw them. Jennifer and Richard, standing near the bar, both dressed impeccably. They hadn't noticed him yet. Jennifer was laughing at something Richard said, touching his arm in a familiar way that once would have hurt Marcus. Now, he felt nothing but distant curiosity. Is that her? Maria whispered. She'd heard the story, though not all of it. That's her. Do you want to leave? No. I belong here just as much as anyone else. As if sensing his gaze, Jennifer turned. Her eyes met Marcus's across the crowded room, and her champagne glass nearly slipped from her hand. She touched Richard's arm urgently, gesturing toward Marcus. Marcus watched their reaction with detached interest. Richard's expression shifted from confusion to recognition to something that looked like concern. Jennifer's face went pale, then flushed. She said something to Richard, who nodded, and then she began walking toward Marcus. Here we go, Maria murmured. Jennifer approached slowly, as if moving through water. When she finally stood before Marcus, she seemed unable to speak for a moment. Up close, Marcus noticed the lines around her eyes, the tightness in her expression that hadn't been there during their marriage. Marcus. I didn't expect to see you here. Jennifer. It's been a while. His voice was calm, professional, almost friendly. Yes. 2 years. She glanced at Maria, taking in the elegant dress, the expensive jewelry. I didn't know you were seeing anyone. Maria is my colleague. And friend. She heads our infrastructure division. Jennifer's eyes widened slightly. Your division? You work in tech now. I own a tech company, actually. SecureNet Technologies. Perhaps you've heard of it. The color drained from Jennifer's face entirely. SecureNet. You're the CEO? But how, when? Richard had joined them, extending his hand professionally. Richard Morrison. I believe we've met, though you may not remember. You were at the demolition site where we were clearing that old warehouse property I owned. I stopped by to check on the progress. Marcus shook his hand, noting the irony. Richard Morrison had owned the warehouse. If he'd been more thorough in inspecting the property, he would have found the money first. Life's twists a small world, Richard said, though his expression was uneasy. "I've been following your company's progress. Quite impressive what you've built in such a short time." "Thank you. Hard work and the right opportunities," Marcus replied. Jennifer seemed to recover slightly. "Marcus, I had no idea. How did you? I mean, the last time I saw you, you were demolishing buildings for $100 a day?" Marcus finished for her. "Yes, I remember. It was the same day you served me divorce papers." The words hung in the air. Jennifer looked down, unable to meet his eyes. "Actually," Marcus continued conversationally, "that turned out to be one of the most important days of my life. Sometimes we need to lose everything to discover what we're truly capable of." "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice boomed over the sound system, "please take your seats. The ceremony is about to begin." Marcus nodded politely to both of them. "If you'll excuse us, I believe our table is toward the front. Maria." He offered Maria his arm, and they walked away, leaving Jennifer standing frozen in place. "That was remarkably graceful of you," Maria whispered as they found their assigned seats at a table near the stage. "No point in being petty," Marcus said. "Besides, living well truly is the best revenge. Not that I'm seeking revenge." The ceremony began with various awards and recognitions. Marcus accepted SecureNet's Innovation Award with a brief but memorable speech about perseverance, transformation, and never underestimating the value of rock bottom. Throughout the evening, Marcus could feel Jennifer's eyes on him. During the networking portion of the event, several people approached to congratulate him or discuss potential business opportunities. He was gracious, professional, and completely in his element. At one point, Marcus found himself temporarily alone when Maria stepped away to take a phone call. Jennifer seized the opportunity, approaching him near the terrace doors. "Marcus, can we talk? Privately." He gestured toward the terrace. They stepped outside into the cool evening air, the sounds of the gala muffled behind the glass doors. "I don't even know where to begin," Jennifer said, wrapping her arms around herself. I'm shocked. How did this happen?" "I made it happen," Marcus said simply. "After the divorce, I had a choice. I could give up or I could fight. I chose to fight. But the money, the company, all of this. It's only been 2 years. I had some lucky breaks. Made some good investments. Found the right opportunity at the right time. But mostly, I just refused to stay down." Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "I was wrong about you. I said terrible things. I treated you like I was worthless," Marcus finished. "I remember." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I was scared, frustrated, and I took it out on you. Richard seemed like security, like stability. I thought that's what I needed." "And is he everything you needed?" Jennifer looked away. "He's comfortable. Safe. But he's not you." Marcus sighed. "Jennifer, I'm not the same person I was. What you did, what you said, it changed me. Maybe for the better, ultimately. But we can't go back." "I'm not asking to go back," she said quickly. I needed you to know that I regret what I did. How I treated you. You deserved better." "Yes, I did," Marcus agreed without malice. "But you showed me who you truly were when things got difficult. That's valuable information. Some people are only there for the good times. I've learned to value the people who stay during the storms." "Like her." Jennifer glanced toward where Maria stood inside, visible through the glass. "Like her," Marcus confirmed. "Maria shared her lunch with me when I was a construction worker. She didn't see a failure or a has-been. She saw a human being who deserved kindness. That matters more than you can imagine. Are you two together? That's not really your concern anymore, is it?" Marcus said it gently but firmly. "You made your choice, Jennifer. You chose Richard, chose security over partnership, chose money over connection. I don't judge you for that. People make decisions based on their values. But those choices have consequences. Do you hate me? Marcus considered the question carefully. No. I don't hate you. I barely think about you, to be honest. I'm too busy building a future, being there for Tyler, creating something meaningful. There's no space in my life for resentment. Tyler talks about you constantly, Jennifer said. About how successful you've become, how proud he is of you. He wants to spend more time with you. And I want that too. I love my son. I always have. I know. I never questioned that. Jennifer paused. Richard and we're having problems. He's not as perfect as I thought he was. Marcus raised an eyebrow. I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm not your confidant anymore, Jennifer. You should talk to your friends, maybe a therapist. Not your ex-husband. You're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. She trailed off, looking lost. For a brief moment, Marcus felt a flicker of the old affection, a memory of the young couple they'd once been. But it was distant, like remembering a movie he'd watched long ago. I hope you find what you're looking for, he said sincerely. I really do. But it's not with me. That door closed 2 years ago, and I've built an entirely new house since then. Jennifer nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. I understand. Can we at least be civil? For Tyler's sake. We've always been civil. I have no interest in making things difficult. Tyler comes first, always. But expecting anything beyond cordial co-parenting would be unrealistic. Thank you, she whispered. Maria appeared at the terrace door, seeing them together. Marcus waved her over. Maria, you remember my ex-wife, Jennifer. Maria extended her hand graciously. Of course. Nice to see you again. Jennifer shook it, clearly intimidated by Maria's poise and elegance. You too. You're very lucky. Marcus is. He's a good man. I know, Maria said, smiling up at Marcus. He's the best person I know. They said their goodbyes and returned to the gala. As the evening wound down, Marcus and Maria prepared to leave. On their way out, Tyler suddenly appeared in the lobby, having apparently convinced his mother to bring him down from upstairs where children of attendees had been entertained with games and movies. Dad! Tyler ran toward Marcus, who caught him in a tight hug. Hey, buddy. What are you doing here? Mom brought me. I wanted to see you. Everyone's talking about you, Dad. They said you won an award. Marcus knelt down to Tyler's level. I did. And you know what? None of it would matter if I didn't have you. You're my real success, Tyler. Can I come stay with you next weekend? I want to see your office. And your apartment. Please. Absolutely. We'll make a whole weekend of it. Jennifer watched from a distance, her expression unreadable. Richard stood beside her, looking distinctly uncomfortable. As Marcus left with Tyler still chattering excitedly and Maria walking beside them, Jennifer realized something profound. She hadn't just lost her husband. She'd lost the best man she'd ever known, sometimes almost humorous. I remember, Marcus said smoothly. 3 months after the gala, Marcus received an unexpected call. His secretary buzzed him in his office. Mr. Thompson, there's a gentleman on line 2. Says his name is William Chen, director of the National Cybersecurity Initiative. He says it's urgent and confidential. Marcus picked up immediately. This is Marcus Thompson. Mr. Thompson, I apologize for the cold call. I'm William Chen from the NCSI, a division under the Department of Homeland Security. We've been following your company's work in cybersecurity very closely. Specifically, your software that prevented the healthcare ransomware attack last year. Marcus sat up straighter. I appreciate the recognition. How can I help you? We'd like to schedule a meeting, in person, at your earliest convenience. I'm not at liberty to discuss the details over the phone, but I can tell you this. What we're proposing could make SecureNet Technologies the primary cybersecurity contractor for multiple government agencies. We're talking about a contract in the range of $200 million over 5 years. Marcus's mind raced. 200 million. That would catapult SecureNet into an entirely different league. I can meet tomorrow if that works for your schedule. Perfect. I'll fly to Seattle tonight. Shall we say 10 a.m. at your office? I'll be here. The next morning, Marcus arrived early, wearing his best suit. Maria joined him, along with SecureNet's CFO and lead security architect. William Chen arrived exactly at 10, accompanied by 2 other officials. The meeting lasted 4 hours. The government wanted SecureNet to develop and manage cybersecurity infrastructure for critical systems, power grids, water treatment facilities, transportation networks, and financial institutions. The scope was enormous, the responsibility staggering. I won't lie to you, Mr. Thompson, Chen said. You're not our only option. We're meeting with 3 other firms. But your technology is superior, and your company's rapid growth suggests you have the agility we need. Large corporations move too slowly. We need innovation, speed, and reliability. We can deliver all 3, Marcus said confidently. But I'll need assurances about creative control and implementation timelines. I won't put my name on something half-finished or compromised by bureaucratic red tape. Chen smiled. That's exactly the attitude we're looking for. Someone who cares about the work, not just the paycheck. Over the next 6 weeks, Marcus and his team worked tirelessly on the proposal. They refined algorithms, designed redundant systems, and created a comprehensive security framework that was both innovative and practical. When they finally submitted their bid, Marcus felt confident but not certain. The competition was fierce. Then, on a Wednesday afternoon, the call came. Mr. Thompson? This is William Chen. I'm pleased to inform you that SecureNet Technologies has been selected as the primary contractor for the National Infrastructure Security Project. Congratulations. Marcus closed his eyes, letting the moment wash over him. 4 years ago, he'd been demolishing buildings for pocket change. Now, he was about to become one of the most important cybersecurity contractors in the nation. Thank you, Mr. Chen. We won't let you down. I know you won't. That's why we chose you. Oh, and one more thing. The president wants to meet you. She's hosting a dinner for critical infrastructure partners next month in Washington. You'll receive a formal invitation, but I wanted to give you advance notice. After hanging up, Marcus sat quietly for a moment. Then he called Maria into his office and shared the news. She screamed with joy and hugged him tightly. We did it, she said, tears streaming down her face. We actually did it. No, Marcus corrected gently. You helped me do it. None of this would be possible without you. That evening, Marcus drove to pick up Tyler for their scheduled weekend together. Jennifer answered the door, her expression carefully neutral. Tyler. Your dad's here, she called up the stairs. While they waited, Jennifer said quietly, I heard about your government contract. It was on the news. That's incredible, Marcus. Thank you. You're going to meet the president? Apparently. Tyler bounded down the stairs with his overnight bag, oblivious to the tension. Dad, can we go to the Space Needle this weekend? And maybe the Science Museum? Absolutely, buddy. Whatever you want. As they left, Marcus caught Jennifer watching them from the doorway, her expression wistful. Richard's car was conspicuously absent. According to Tyler, Richard had been traveling a lot lately, and when he was home, he and Jennifer argued constantly. Their relationship was deteriorating, though Marcus felt no satisfaction in that knowledge. The dinner at the White House was surreal. Marcus found himself in a room with senators, corporate titans, military generals, and the president herself. She shook his hand warmly and said, Mr. Thompson, I've read about your remarkable journey. From construction worker to cybersecurity innovator in less than 4 years. That's the kind of American dream story we need more of. Thank you, Madam President. I had help along the way, and I was fortunate enough to recognize opportunities when they appeared. Humble and hard-working. I like that. She moved on to greet other guests, but Marcus stood there for a moment, marveling at how far he'd come. At the dinner, Marcus sat between a 3-star general and the CEO of a major defense contractor. The conversation was stimulating, challenging, and energizing. These were serious people doing important work, and Marcus belonged among them. During dessert, Maria leaned over and whispered, "Are you thinking what I'm thinking? That this is completely insane and we're incredibly lucky?" Exactly that. After returning to Seattle, Marcus couldn't shake a feeling of incompleteness. He had wealth, success, respect, and purpose. He had Tyler's love and Maria's friendship. But something was still missing, a sense of closure with his old life. One evening, he made a decision. He called Jennifer. "Marcus, is everything okay? Is Tyler all right?" "Tyler's fine. I was calling about something else. I wanted to invite you to lunch. There are some things I'd like to discuss." There was a long pause. "Okay. When?" "Saturday. That new place on Capitol Hill, at noon." "I'll be there." When Saturday arrived, Marcus dressed casually, jeans and a sweater. This wasn't a business meeting. When he arrived at the restaurant, Jennifer was already there, looking nervous and uncertain. They ordered, made small talk about Tyler, and then Marcus got to the point. "Jennifer, I've been thinking a lot about forgiveness lately. Not for your benefit, but for mine. I've realized that holding on to any residual hurt or anger, even if I don't actively feel it, isn't healthy. So I wanted to tell you, face to face. I forgive you. Completely." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "Marcus, Let me finish," he said gently. "I forgive you for how things ended. I understand now that you were scared and dealing with your own issues. You made choices that hurt me, but those choices also set me free to become who I was meant to be. In a strange way, I'm grateful. I destroyed our marriage," Jennifer said, her voice breaking. "We both played a part in that. I could have communicated better, fought harder, been more present emotionally. But what's done is done. I'm not interested in rehashing the past. I'm interested in making sure Tyler has parents who can be in the same room without tension. Can we do that?" Jennifer nodded, wiping her eyes. "Richard and I broke up last week. He wasn't who I thought he was. Turns out he'd been inappropriate with other female employees. I was just the latest in a pattern." "I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Really?" Marcus considered the question honestly. "Yes, actually. I don't wish unhappiness on you, Jennifer. You're Tyler's mother. Your well-being affects his well-being. I hope you find whatever you're looking for, whatever that is." "And what about you? Have you found what you're looking for?" Marcus smiled. "I'm getting there. Maria and I have been spending more time together, not just professionally. She understands me in ways I didn't know I needed to be understood. She's lucky to have you. I was too once. I just didn't appreciate it." They finished lunch on good terms, perhaps the best terms they'd shared in years. As Marcus drove home, he felt lighter somehow, as if a weight he'd been carrying had finally lifted. 2 years had passed since the government contract, and SecureNet Technologies had become a household name in the cybersecurity world. The company now employed over 1,500 people across 12 offices worldwide. Marcus had been featured in Forbes, interviewed on CNBC, and invited to speak at technology conferences from Silicon Valley to Singapore. But success hadn't changed his core values. He still arrived at the office before most employees, still personally reviewed major projects, and still treated the newest intern with the same respect he showed his executive team. Maria had become more than his colleague and friend. Their relationship had evolved naturally over months of long conversations, shared challenges, and deep mutual respect. One evening, after working late on a particularly difficult project, Marcus had simply asked, "Would you like to have dinner with me?" Not a working dinner. A real date. Maria had smiled, her eyes warm. "I thought you'd never ask." Now, as he sat in his office reviewing the quarterly reports, Marcus's assistant buzzed him. "Mr. Thompson, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. Her name is Jennifer Thompson." Marcus hesitated, then said, "Send her in." Jennifer entered looking different than the last time he'd seen her. She was dressed more simply, her hair pulled back, her makeup minimal. She looked like the woman he'd married years ago, before ambition and insecurity had changed her. "Thank you for seeing me without an appointment," she said, sitting across from his desk. "Is Tyler okay?" "He's fine. Thriving, actually. He got accepted into that engineering program he applied for." "That's wonderful." He mentioned he was applying. Marcus leaned back in his chair. "So what brings you here, Jennifer?" "I wanted to tell you something. I've been in therapy for the past year, working through a lot of things. My therapist helped me understand why I reacted the way I did when you lost your job, why I treated you so terribly. Jennifer, we've moved past this. Please, let me say this. I need to." She took a deep breath. "My father left my mother when I was 8 because we didn't have enough money. He literally said he couldn't stay with a woman who couldn't provide the life he wanted. My mother struggled for years after that. I watched her work 3 jobs, watched her cry when bills came, watched her sacrifice everything. I swore I'd never be in that position." Marcus listened quietly, understanding dawning. "When you lost your job, all those old fears came rushing back. Instead of supporting you, instead of being a partner, I panicked. I saw my mother's life flashing before my eyes. So I pushed you away and grabbed onto Richard because he represented security, or what I thought was security." "I understand," Marcus said gently. "Trauma makes us do things that don't align with who we truly are." "I'm not asking for another chance," Jennifer said quickly. "I know that ship has sailed, and honestly, seeing you with Maria, seeing how happy you are, I know you're where you're supposed to be. I just needed you to understand that my behavior was never about your worth. It was about my fear. You were always enough, Marcus. I was just too broken to see it." "Thank you for telling me that," Marcus said. "It means more than you know. There's one more thing." Jennifer pulled an envelope from her purse. "Tyler turns 18 next month. He's been talking about wanting to work for SecureNet during his summer break, learning about the business. I wanted to ask if that would be okay with you." Marcus smiled broadly. "More than okay. I'd be honored. He can start in the engineering department, learn from the ground up like everyone else." "He'd love that." Jennifer stood to leave, then paused. "You really did it, Marcus. You became everything you were capable of being. I'm genuinely proud of you." After she left, Marcus sat quietly, reflecting on the journey. The hidden money in that warehouse wall had given him a chance, but it was his own determination, skills, and character that had built everything else. The money was just a tool. He was the builder. That evening, Marcus picked up Maria for dinner at their favorite restaurant. Over wine and pasta, he told her about Jennifer's visit. "How do you feel about it?" Maria asked. "Grateful, actually. For closure, for understanding, for the ability to co-parent Tyler without lingering resentment. I feel complete." Maria reached across the table and took his hand. "You're an extraordinary man, Marcus Thompson. Do you know that? I'm just someone who refused to give up when things got hard. That's what makes you extraordinary." Later that week, Marcus received news that would change everything once more. The Secretary of Commerce wanted to appoint him to a National Technology Advisory Board. The position would require spending significant time in Washington, advising policymakers on cybersecurity, digital infrastructure, and tech innovation. "It's an incredible honor," the secretary said during their phone call. "You'd be working directly with the administration, shaping policy that affects the entire nation." Marcus accepted immediately. This was the kind of impact he'd always wanted to make, not just building a successful company, but contributing to something larger than himself. The official announcement came 2 weeks later. Marcus Thompson, former construction worker turned tech CEO, had been appointed to one of the most prestigious advisory positions in the country. The press coverage was extensive, with particular focus on his remarkable transformation story. At the celebratory dinner Marcus hosted, Tyler stood to give a toast. Now 17 and mature beyond his years, he spoke with confidence. "Dad, when you and Mom got divorced, I was angry and confused. I didn't understand why our family was falling apart. But watching you over these past 6 years, watching you work harder than anyone I've ever known, watching you treat people with kindness even when you had nothing, watching you build something meaningful from nothing, you taught me the most important lesson. Who you are isn't defined by your circumstances. It's defined by how you respond to them. I'm proud to be your son." Marcus had to wipe his eyes. In the end, this was what mattered most. Not the money, not the success, not the prestigious appointments. The fact that his son respected him, looked up to him, wanted to follow in his footsteps. That night, as Marcus stood on his penthouse balcony overlooking the city, Maria joined him, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Penny, for your thoughts," she said. "I was just thinking about that construction site 6 years ago. About being broke, divorced, and desperate. If someone had told me then that I'd end up here, I wouldn't have believed them. But you made it happen." "We made it happen," Marcus corrected. "You, me, Terence, Sarah, David, everyone who believed in the vision. Success is never just one person's achievement." "Spoken like a true leader," Maria said, kissing his cheek. As they stood there together, Marcus thought about the bag of money hidden in that warehouse wall. It had been his secret for 6 years, a truth he'd never shared with anyone. The money had given him an opportunity, yes, but it could just as easily have destroyed him if he'd used it foolishly. 5 years after finding the money, Marcus had settled into his role as one of the nation's leading technology advisors. SecureNet Technologies was now valued at over $300 million, with international partnerships and groundbreaking innovations in artificial intelligence security. Tyler was in his junior year of college, studying computer engineering and working part-time at SecureNet. Maria and Marcus had gotten engaged the previous year, planning a small, intimate wedding for the spring. Life was stable, successful, and fulfilling. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, everything nearly came crashing down. Marcus was in his office when his attorney, Gerald Hoffman, called with an urgent tone Marcus had never heard before. "Marcus, we need to meet immediately. Don't discuss this over the phone. Come to my office within the hour." 30 minutes later, Marcus sat across from Gerald, who looked grave. On the desk between them was a folder marked, "Confidential." "Marcus, I received a call yesterday from a federal investigator. They're looking into the origin of your initial startup capital for SecureNet Technologies." Marcus's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "Specifically, they're tracing financial flows from 6 years ago. Someone, and they won't say who, has raised questions about where you obtained the money to start your company. Your documented investments and inheritance story check out on the surface, but apparently, there are inconsistencies." Marcus closed his eyes. After all these years, after everything he'd built, the truth was coming back to haunt him. "Gerald, I need to tell you something. And after I tell you, you may not want to represent me anymore." Over the next hour, Marcus told the complete truth for the first time. The warehouse demolition, finding the bags of money, the decision to keep them, and how he'd carefully laundered the funds through legitimate investments before building his company. Gerald listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When Marcus finished, the attorney leaned back in his chair and was quiet for a long moment. The money belonged to Carl Hendricks, the warehouse owner who died before federal prosecutors could charge him with smuggling and money laundering. Technically, that money should have been seized as proceeds of criminal activity. You found it, kept it, and used it. That's theft of government assets, potentially money laundering, tax evasion. I know, Marcus said quietly. I knew it was wrong from the beginning. But I was desperate, broken, and angry. I saw an opportunity and I took it. Everything I've built since has been legitimate, but the foundation is illegal. Here's the problem, Gerald continued. If this goes to trial, you could lose everything. The company, your assets, your reputation. You could face serious prison time. What are my options? Gerald opened the folder. The investigator who called me is named Patricia Chen. She's with the Financial Crimes Division. Apparently, she's been following your story for months, initially just curious about your rapid rise. Then she started digging deeper. So it's over. Not necessarily. Here's what I propose. We request a meeting with Patricia Chen and the federal prosecutor. You come completely clean, voluntarily disclose everything. You offer full cooperation. You offer to make restitution to the government for the original amount you found, plus interest. You position this as a desperate man who made a terrible mistake but then built something legitimate and valuable. Will that work? I don't know. But it's your best shot. The alternative is they come after you, seize everything, and make an example of you. At least this way, you're controlling the narrative. 3 days later, Marcus sat in a federal building conference room across from Patricia Chen, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, and Assistant U.S. Attorney James Morrison. Gerald sat beside him. Marcus took a deep breath and told them everything. He didn't minimize, didn't make excuses. He simply told the truth. When he finished, Patricia Chen spoke first. Mr. Thompson, do you understand that what you're describing is multiple federal crimes? Yes, ma'am. Why are you telling us this now? You could have kept quiet, hoped we never found enough evidence to prosecute. Because I'm tired of hiding it. Because everything I've built is tainted by that initial choice. And because my son is about to graduate college, and I want him to be proud of his father without reservation. I can't have that if I'm living a lie. Morrison, the prosecutor, studied Marcus carefully. You've done remarkable things with SecureNet. Your company protects critical infrastructure, employs thousands, contributes significantly to national security. Prosecuting you would damage those efforts. I understand that's not your concern, Marcus said. Justice is your concern, and I'm prepared to face the consequences. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Patricia Chen said something unexpected. What if there was another way? What if instead of prosecution, we structured this as a civil matter? You voluntarily surrender an amount equal to what you found, plus 20% interest, to the Treasury. That's approximately $7 million. Additionally, you agree to donate another $3 million to a fund supporting job training for displaced workers. That's $10 million total, a significant penalty. I'll do it, Marcus said immediately. Whatever it takes to make this right. Additionally, Morrison added, you would have to publicly acknowledge that your startup capital came from found money that should have been reported, without going into the illegal specifics. A carefully worded statement that admits fault without inviting further legal action. You take a reputation hit, but you keep your company. Why would you offer me this? Marcus asked. Patricia Chen leaned forward. Because I've studied your case thoroughly, Mr. Thompson. You didn't steal from working people. You didn't defraud investors. You didn't hurt anyone. You found money that was already the proceeds of crime. Money that would have sat in an evidence locker for years during litigation, eventually being absorbed into general federal funds. You used it to build something that actively protects Americans. Yes, you broke the law. But sometimes justice isn't just about punishment. It's about making things right. And if I'm being honest, Morrison added, prosecuting you would be expensive, time-consuming, and ultimately counterproductive. This way, the government gets restitution, you get to continue your work, and justice is served through financial penalty rather than incarceration. 2 weeks later, Marcus held a press conference. With Maria beside him and Gerald standing in the background, He read a carefully prepared statement. 6 years ago, while working a construction job, I discovered a significant amount of cash hidden in a building. Rather than reporting it to authorities, I kept it and used it as startup capital for what became SecureNet Technologies. This was wrong, and I deeply regret that decision. I have since reached an agreement with federal authorities to make full financial restitution and additional penalties. I wanted to address this publicly because I believe in transparency and accountability. The company I built is legitimate and valuable, but my initial funding was not, and I take full responsibility for that mistake. The media firestorm was intense but relatively short-lived. Some called Marcus a thief. Others called him an opportunist who'd made a mistake but ultimately contributed positively to society. Business partners stood by him. Government contracts were reviewed but ultimately retained after thorough examination showed all subsequent work was legitimate. Tyler called him immediately after the press conference. "Dad, are you okay?" "I'm fine, son. I'm actually better than fine. I'm free. I heard what you said. I'm still proud of you, Dad. You made a mistake, but you owned it. That takes courage." That evening, Marcus sat with Maria in their living room. She'd been quiet since the press conference, and Marcus was worried. "Are you having second thoughts?" he finally asked. "About us?" Maria looked at him with clear, steady eyes. "Marcus, I knew." "What?" "Not the specifics, but I knew something had happened that you weren't telling me. No one transforms that completely without some kind of catalyst. I didn't need to know the details. I just needed to know who you were as a person, and I've seen that every day for 6 years. You're not disappointed in me? I'm proud of you for coming clean. That was the hardest thing you could have done, and you did it anyway. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." Over the following months, the storm passed. SecureNet continued to grow. Marcus's reputation, after an initial hit, actually improved as people recognized his willingness to face consequences rather than hide from mistakes. One Saturday afternoon, Marcus invited Jennifer and Richard, they'd reconciled after couples therapy, to his home for a family dinner with Tyler. It was awkward at first, but Tyler had requested it, wanting his blended family to find peace. After dinner, as they sat in the garden, Jennifer said something that surprised everyone. "Marcus, I want to thank you for showing Tyler what real integrity looks like. When you could have kept hiding your secret, you chose truth instead. That's the kind of lesson I never could have taught him." "We all make mistakes," Marcus said. "The important thing is how we handle them afterward." As the evening wound down and guests departed, Marcus stood alone in his home office, looking at the photographs on his wall. There was Tyler at graduation, Maria on their engagement day, his company's ribbon-cutting ceremony, and a framed Forbes magazine cover featuring him with the headline, "From Hard Times to High Tech, the Marcus Thompson Story." But there was one more photograph, one that only he understood the significance of. It was a picture of the old warehouse, taken from a news article about the demolition project. It was a reminder of where he'd been, what he'd found, and the choice he'd made. Was it the right choice? Marcus had asked himself that question 1,000 times. He'd taken money that wasn't his and used it to build something extraordinary. He'd broken the law but ultimately contributed positively to society. He'd lied about his origins but told the truth when it mattered most. Life wasn't simple. Choices weren't always clearly right or wrong. Sometimes they were just human, flawed, complicated, and ultimately defined by what came after. Marcus turned off the office light and walked upstairs to where Maria was waiting. Tomorrow they had a company to run, employees to support, and systems to protect. Tomorrow, Tyler would come by to discuss his senior project. Tomorrow, life would continue as it always did. But tonight, Marcus was simply grateful. Grateful for second chances, for the courage to face consequences, for the people who'd stood by him, and for the journey that had transformed him from a broken man demolishing walls to a successful man building bridges. The bag of money hidden in that warehouse wall had changed his life, but Marcus Thompson had changed himself. And that, ultimately, was what mattered most. The end. What an incredible journey. If you loved Marcus's story of redemption and transformation, smash that like button. Subscribe to our channel for more amazing real-life inspired stories. Comment below. What would you have done with the money? Would you have turned it in or kept it? Share your thoughts. And if you want more stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary choices, check out our playlist in the description.